What's up, friends? Welcome back to Coffee Time with Alice. Well, I'm so glad you can join me for the conclusion of my Pillars of Rock and Roll series. As you may or may not know, depending on how long you've been following this series, I've talked about legends like Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Skip James, Memphis Minnie, B.B. King, Big Mama Thornton, and of course Buddy Guy. So where do I go from here? How do I end this? I want to talk about the legacy. Where is black rock and roll today, based on the platform that these legends have built? So I want to talk about a London-based black feminist punk rock riot girl band that I've come to really enjoy listening to. They came up on my algorithms. I'm talking about Big Joanie.
If I ever fall asleep now, would you wake me from the dream that's kept me shaking now for weeks, that's kept me shaking now for weeks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I ever fall asleep now, would you wake me from the dream that's kept me aching now for weeks, that's kept me aching now for weeks? If I ever fall asleep now, would you wake me from the dream that's kept me way down on my knees, that's kept me way down on my knees? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Founded in 2013 by guitarist and vocalist Stephanie Phillips, she posted an ad online looking for other black feminist musicians to put together this band in a response to a lack of intersectionality in punk rock and riot girl scenes. Much of the scene being mostly white and a lot of times also mostly white male. Or in riot girl circles, white women. And, we know that punk rock and riot girl, there's so much more to it than that. For her, she wanted to create a scene and representation for black women and women of color. And so that's how Big Joanie was formed. The name comes from two things. One, her mother's name, Joan. And two, an old Caribbean saying that if a child is said to be acting big, that they're acting bigger than themselves. And Stephanie thought that was very fitting for a black feminist band, something very empowering. There's so many limits put on women in rock and roll, let alone black women in rock and roll. So the first EP was released in 2014 by Tough Enough Records. It was titled Sister Love. A couple years later, they created their own label, Sister Punk Records. And they released another EP entitled Crooked Room. Now, the title song is based on a writer, Melissa Harris Perry, who talked about how being a black woman under a white patriarchy is like trying to find true vertical in a room where everything is crooked. And so these are a lot of things that that are in Big Joanie's lyrics. Intersectionality and feminism, black feminism, the human condition. Just a lot of different meaningful topics that she was inspired, a lot of her writing style was inspired by artists like Sleater Kinney, based in Olympia, Washington, and of course Catherine Hanna from Bikini Kill, all of them in the Pacific Northwest scene, that OG riot grrrl movement in the 90s. That was actually a major influence on Stephanie Phillips, despite the scene being predominantly white. In an interview she did, she was talking about how much of Seattle and the Pacific Northwest is predominantly white, so it wasn't surprising to her that much of the scene was as well. But that makes what she does that much more important. She took what was done then and added diversity to it, brought in the important topic of intersectionality. In 2017, the collective that she founded, Diaspora Punks, they started a Decolonize Fest. Their first show was in 2017, and this is an event that's still going to this day. So yeah, Big Joanie is very important. They're carrying the torch that these legends left behind. Building not only great albums and music, they have 2 albums out. Their first album, Sistas, their hit song Falling Asleep, that was actually the first song I heard from them. Great album. The whole album has that classic riot grrrl mixed with a little bit of pop feel. And, in 2022, they released their second album, Back Home, which builds on that, but also brings in some alternative and brings in more texture, brings in a little bit of dark wave. I recommend listening to both albums. You can hear them both, and also their EPs on all the different streaming sites. Definitely buy their music wherever you can, buy their merch, support them, see them live. Big Joanie, they're a great band. They're keeping the legacy going. I feel like they're a representation of why the legends I've talked about in this series, why they're so important, why they've left such a profound effect. There's the nuts and bolts part of the music with the 12-bar formula and guitar solos and the guitar, bass, and drum setup that is the standard of rock and roll, which was initially a standard of blues. There's all that goes into what we all do today. But there's also the inspiration. There's also the discussions, the stories that are told in the lyrics, the stories of pain and triumph, building community in the face of oppression. Because when you're talking about any form of oppression, their biggest tool is to divide. Keep people divided, keep people isolated from their own communities. And so, building these events, like the old juke joints back in the day, right on up to Decolonize Fest, founded by Stephanie Phillips and her Diaspora Punks collective. It's all connected. It's all a great form of true activism. Not just writing angry stuff on social media or screaming out in the streets with no particular goals. It's building a community, building a commonality. When they try to divide us, we stick together and we know better. We know better than to trust what they put on AI or Fox News or CNN or what any politician's screaming about on X. When we all stand together and we learn from each other and have real conversations, such as events like Decolonize Fest or your local punk show or the juke joints back in the day, that's how we build our communities and that's how we stay strong. So yeah, let's learn from all these legends. They were the ones that taught us this. The legends walked so we can all run. And let's never forget that. There's no excuse to ever forget that. Thank you all for joining me on this. This has been a beautiful journey. I'm gonna be doing more stuff like this in the future. And if there's anything you'd like, any topics around this vein that you'd like me to talk about, shoot me a message or comment below. Let's all keep these conversations going, because this is how we grow. This is how we hold ourselves accountable. And this is a major way of fighting back. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.
It's been a